Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Erin Kopek, and I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing at Higher Level. Super excited to have you join us this morning, and Shad also for his presentation on communicating effectively across teams. This is a topic I think we can all learn from. I know myself, we're always looking to grow in this area, so looking to have some takeaways from today. Before I introduce Shad, just a few housekeeping things. This presentation will last less than an hour, so get you in and out with some great takeaways. Everybody on the call today, you are set up in listen-only mode. So you do have the option to chat in the chat box, ask questions. I know Shad's going to be doing some interactions with you all too and asking for participation. So I encourage you to do that, and I can help facilitate. So let's get started. Just a little bit about Shad. Shad joined the Lucian team in 2014, bringing him extensive global business experience and an Ironman triathlete's discipline and tenacity. As a leading sales process consultant, he focuses on creating scalable, repeatable process to ensure client success. Shad excels at helping clients define their goals, develop plans, and an understanding of how to execute their training in real life. Shad's measured, methodical approach to sales process consulting has calming effect on clients, allowing them to look past immediate problems in order to create a step-by-step path to their goals. When he's not working, Shad spends his time swimming, biking, and running. Higher Level recently started working with Shad, and we're excited to see where the rest of the year takes us with him. So thank you for joining us, Shad, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Erin, for the very nice intro. We're going to go ahead and proceed since I already gave a little background. What we're going to do first is we're going to be talking about some expectations here. So let me see. Oh, it looks like my advance isn't working. Erin, if you could advance slide for me, I appreciate that. Oh, thank you. So overview and expectations for today. Like Erin said, is we'll be in and out under an hour. Here's my goal. My goal is to help us think through, when it comes to communicating, what are some challenges that we're running into and why do those occur? And then also, are some things that we may not even realize that we're doing that makes those challenges occur. And then from there to start to go, okay, well, what's some good things to keep in mind, rules to help us, when it comes to communicating with our team, be more effective, and then what's some actual tactical stuff that we can put into place today, tomorrow, later this week. So my goal isn't just to throw a bunch of theory. My goal is to have you, at least walk away with one, I call it golden nugget, something that you go, not only did I gain this, I learned, and a little bit about how to do it, but I can actually put it into place, because we all learn a lot of stuff over time. And if we can't put it into action, it doesn't really help. So my goal for you and my expectation is that you walk away with one little nugget. As we go through, I'm going to have some interactive pieces where I'm asking some questions, and in the chat, either myself or Erin are going to see those, and we're going to try our best to get feedback, answer questions, et cetera. And then we'll have a Q&A period at the end. And we'll do some lessons learned, and then I'll also provide a way, if you would like, to reach out and contact me from today. I'll provide my phone number, email, also a QR code where you can go and put in some info to have me contact you if you'd like. Now, if you don't put anything in there, I will not reach out to you. I will not spam you. I'm only going to reach out if you say I'd like to be contacted, and you reach out through one of those means. And all it means is that we'll set up a time for a 15-20-minute call just to talk about whatever's on your mind, whatever you like to talk about, and determine if we go from there to talk further or not. But once again, if you don't reach out, you don't say, hey, contact me, I'm not going to contact you. Okay? So let's proceed from here. All right, let's see. So let's start. I said we're going to be interactive. Here we go. In the chat, please put, what are some challenges you're running into when communicating with your team? You think about some of the things you see on a regular basis. And here's an example. One thing I hear is that I give them some instruction and tell them to do something, and they don't do it, or they end up doing the opposite. And I'm not sure why, right? So that's an example. So put in the chat, what are some things and challenges you run into when communicating with your team? I'll give you a couple minutes, and we're going to get some of those, and then I'm going to share some other ones that we see, and we'll talk about why those come up. All right, and Aaron, if you would, I'm not sure if I'm gonna see them on my end, but if you see some stuff coming in, if you would just share with me what some of the folks are saying in the chat, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we have a couple of responses coming in. People not responding to the last email in a chain email causing confusion. And then another response, figuring out how best to communicate with my team.
Very good one. How best to communicate. Gotcha. Okay, good. Any others we're seeing yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I'll give it another 30 seconds here, and then if not, we're going to move on with some of the ones that we see, and then we'll talk about those couple that you mentioned and why those occur.
All right, we have one more, missing water cooler conversations.
Yes. Very important. I'm going to actually hit that one real quick as a way you can work around that and how we did here at Lucian. We're a small team of about 15 people. And obviously when the pandemic hit, we were used to all being in the office 3/4 of the week, if not more. And we have clients all over the country, and we did some virtual, but we had a lot of local clients coming in for classes, for specific coaching sessions with them, other sessions. And then also we went 100% virtual, just like everyone else. And for a long time, we weren't in the office at all. One of the things that we instituted that helped with the water cooler conversations was that we set twice a week what we call huddles. And that huddle happens virtually on Zoom is what our platform is. We use from 7:30 to 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern every Monday and Thursday. Except for once a month, we have a staff meeting on Mondays, so we don't have that meeting because we see each other in person or virtual that day. But that 30 minutes, it's dedicated to a couple things. First off, we start with positive focus on a Monday morning, which is what's something good, positive, personal or professional happened last week you want to share with the team that we can all enjoy, and we go around and everybody shares something. On Thursdays, we implemented, instead of positive focus, what we call Appreciation Thursday. So you have to share something you appreciate or thank someone on the team for something they've done. And that's grown this year as we've implemented that. But the first part of it's just sharing, and we spend some extra time, 5-10 minutes, just things going on, joking around, fun stuff. And then after we go through positive focus or appreciation, we then dive into, we've got some stuff that we work together as a team. It might be some initiatives of things, figuring out some problems or challenges, upcoming things we're thinking about, preparing for an upcoming, like we have our company retreat for 2 days next month where we do our planning for next year, whatever it is. But for the water cooler talk, we have that time where, yes, it's in a setting where it's organized and you're expected to be there unless you got personal travel or you're traveling for a client, you can't, or something unexpected comes up. But that gives us a time to have some of that water cooler talk. It also spawns little conversations in between. Right, so that's one way in the virtual environment, or especially if you're still in an environment that's maybe hybrid or still pretty virtual, you can facilitate that and make sure that still happens because that is important. And one of the things we found too is once we opened back up the office last fall, there's a lot of us that still come in. I come in probably half the week just so I can have those little hallway conversations. All right. Okay, so let's go on. Aaron, was any other input anybody else put in? If not, we'll go ahead and proceed.
We had one more stating that brainstorming has to be scheduled.
Brainstorming has to be scheduled. Yes, okay. All right, so let's talk about some other ones, other challenges we hear, and we'll talk about why those are coming up. All right, make sure we're going here. Number one of the challenges I hear, they don't listen to you. Say, okay, this is important, we got to focus on it, and it doesn't seem to be important to them, right? Or it kind of leads into some other ones that we'll talk about is, you tell them to do something, and it doesn't get done. Another one, your message doesn't seem to get across to them. Kind of goes with the first one, but you go, this is important, right? This isn't, we need to have it as a priority, but it doesn't seem to be a priority to them, or they don't put the time, effort, and energy, or it kind of gets put into the background with everything else and becomes white noise. They say they understand and agree to something and then don't do it or do the opposite, right? And you're going, we talked about this, so why aren't we doing this? Why isn't this happening, right? Or why are we doing the opposite, right? And I see a lot of leaders get frustrated by this. They're like, we've had the same conversation again and again, and nothing changes, behavior doesn't change, they don't take action on it, or they keep bringing me the same problem that we've talked through 100 times. I've showed them how to solve it. I've done it for them, but they don't seem to make any change, right? They just keep doing the same thing. Some of the other things, you keep having the same conversation over and over again, like I mentioned, right? So here's a scenario I see a lot is, leaders coming in, they're frustrated, and they go, what's wrong with my people? They don't get it, right? They come to me with the problem, I ask them some questions, I get a little context on the problem, and it seems like then I give them the solution, or I go do this, or this is how I would approach it, or I actually walk them through it and I go, watch me, I'll show you, or I'll do it for you, you observe. And then a week goes by and they come back and they go, almost exact same problem, and they haven't done it, right? Or they're not applying the stuff I showed them, and I don't know why. And it's frustrating. It feels like I'm just having the same conversation again and again, and I waste and spend a lot of time having that conversation again, and they don't get it. Their style of communication doesn't line up with yours. Someone said how best to communicate. And we're going to talk about some ways of determining styles of communication, how best to communicate with people. But their style doesn't, maybe you're very just high level, to the point, here's what we need to do. Let's go get it, let's do it. And they need a lot more detail. They ask a ton of questions. We're like, well, what about this? What about that? How do we do it? Or you're like, we got to get this done right away, and they seem to take their time and seem to, it's like you're constantly pushing them to get started. Or you just share with them, go, this is important, let's keep focused and get this done, and they're talking about 18 other things, right? Their style of communication, how they process, how they interpret things, what they do doesn't line up with yours, and it gets frustrating. So you're like, I'm constantly pushing them to get going. So why are these challenges occurring, right? That's why we're here. As we shared some of the other ones, like we mentioned, how best to communicate. They don't respond to emails in the chain. We're missing some of the conversations. Brainstorming has to be scheduled. Why are some of these things occurring, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. What's happening? Some things that may be obvious, some things that maybe not, and maybe because you're not aware or not don't realize that you're causing some of these challenges to happen in communication, all right? So we're gonna talk about that, and then we'll start to talk about what can we do to start to resolve them, right? So first one is we don't recognize and adjust to their communication style. Here's the thing, folks. Yes, it would be awesome if everyone was just like you, communicated just like you, thought and acted like you. Right, and there's going to be some of your people in your organization, some of your, if you're a leader, some of your employees who are reporting to you. If you're not a leader, but you're working with our team, some people on other teams who are just like you, and you're like, they get it. They talk like me, they act like me, they walk and think like I do, they move at the pace I do, they get it. There's going to be a lot of people who aren't, because they aren't you. As a leader, you got to be able to go, I need to be able to adjust to other styles and communicate in a way that gets them comfortable, so they open up and communicate back, and also gets them where they go, I get it, I understand, and to take action, right? And I got to appreciate other styles. As a client of mine once put it, he goes, I am who I am, and my style and my communication, what's comfortable for me. And I said, absolutely. And he said, but I can be like a chameleon. I can adapt to other people's communication style, what's comfortable for them, so they feel comfortable to share. It's important as a leader that you start to recognize the other styles, not see as frustrating, but see as it's just they're different from me, and then learn some tools, which we'll talk about here in the back half today, to help you more easily communicate with their style and to do things to get them in action and moving and behavior happening. All right, so that's the first problem, reason why, is that we're just not taking the time or having the awareness to recognize and then know what to do to adjust, which we'll talk about later. You're not slowing down to have the right conversations and really help them. All right, as a leader, you probably wear 18 hats, at least, if not more, right? Having to handle this, having to handle that. And depending on the size of your organization, small organizations, you're wearing more hats and you have more roles you have to take on. Maybe, in a small organization might be handling finances on top of leading your team, running some of the sales, making sure operations are going, setting the strategy, making sure client relations are taken on, right, and handled well. You got a lot of hats. When somebody comes to you with a problem, big thing I see with a lot of leaders is they go, I just want to solve it quickly because I got 18 other things on my plate today to get done. And this is just one. And there's some other fires that might be bigger. Problem is that you may rush and go, okay, what's the problem? Somebody's bringing a problem on your people. All right, that's the problem. All right, you ask a couple questions like, okay, so what exactly is going on? Give me a little detail. Okay. And then you say, here's what you should do. Or you say, this is what I would do. Or you say, let me take it on and I'll get it done for you because you don't know what to do. And then we'll talk about it later. Problem is that the people that you're doing that to, when you go, I'll take it on, let me tell you what to do, here's what I would do, they're not learning anything from it. So that creates a loop and they're going to come back to you every time with that same problem because they're like, I don't know what to do besides come to you and you solve it. That's a concept called learned helplessness, which we'll talk about a little more detail here in a minute. You're creating a bridge of reliance on you, where they go, instead of trying to figure it out or to understand, have the tools to figure it out, to solve the problem, I will just come to you and you will solve it for me or take it over for me. And that's the easiest thing to do, right? So here's one thing I learned. As Aaron mentioned, I spent a lot of time in my free time in the past doing triathlons, swimming, biking, running all over the country, various distances. And I've had some great coaches during that time, but one of the coaches in particular in Indianapolis, this gentleman, Doug, who was my coach when I did the Ironman in Louisville a few years back, he was helping me get better at swimming because I was like a lame duck out there swimming. I could swim and I could go for a long time, but I was very inefficient. And it was very obvious. And he said, we got to get you more efficient if you're going to finish this race and do it well. And I remember I was in the pool training on a Saturday morning and he looked at me and goes, okay, come to the side of this lane. We're going to work on your technique. And he just had me stand in the lane and just practice my swim stroke over and over again, just correcting. And then he had me swim down the 25 meters to the other end, very slowly, one arm, just working on that and back. And again, I was getting frustrated. I'm like, I just want to get the practice done. This is frustrating. It's taking forever. And he looked at me and said, we got to slow down to go faster, Shad. If we're not doing the right things up front and slowing down right now and getting the technique right, helping you solve the problem, get it where it's muscle memory, you're doing the right things consistently, you're not going to go faster later. Same thing with your people. Are you taking the time to really ask the questions to understand the problems, understand what's really going on? Ask questions to help them discover what the problem is versus just giving them the answer. Asking questions that help get them thinking of how to solve it, what to do, and coach them through that, and then holding them accountable to take action. If you're not slowing down to do that, you're going to have the same problems again with your people because they'll come to you and go, solve it for me. That goes into learned helplessness and what I just talked about. You're solving the problems for them again. You're creating that bridge. You got to break it, which means we got to slow down a little bit up front. And it may seem counterintuitive because you're like, we're spending more time. But if you add up all the times you're solving the same problem again and again, by slowing down up front, you can save the back end time and go faster there because people will get it. They will start to apply it. They will go, okay, now I know what to do. And you hold them accountable to doing that. Right? You're making it all about you, not about them. This is probably the biggest one in communication. When we get so focused on what we want in that communication, right? In a meeting, we're only focused on, I got to get the stuff answered that's important to me. I got to learn what's important to me. I got to share what's important to me or talk about what's important to me. And we're not taking the time to listen and understand what's important to them. What is it they want to talk about? Why is that something that's important to them? What motivates and drives our people? You're making it all about you. Maybe because you're moving really fast. You just want to get things done, knocked off your plate, so you can do things you really enjoy. Maybe because you just haven't thought about it and gone, if I really want to motivate my people, probably need to understand what motivates them, what drives them, what's important to them, and how do I get those things out of the way? If you stop making it all about you and make it about them, communication gets a lot easier. Right? So we talked through some of the challenges I shared and examples, some of the things that other people shared, how best to communicate with people, missing the water cooler conversations, they're not responding on emails, brainstorming has to be scheduled. Those things I just talked about and some of the examples people gave in the chat, put how are these communication challenges impacting your business, right? So think about like some of the impact. If it's, I feel like I'm wasting time solving the same problem again and again. Feels like my people just aren't motivated. Share in the chat and Aaron will give me some of those. What's the impact that the communication challenges are having on your business? All right, Aaron, anything coming through yet?
We do. Let's see. Some important questions are not getting answered because they feel they cannot ask.
Gotcha.
And then policies are not being effectively implemented. I'm constantly in training mode.
Policies not being implemented. Gotcha. And we're constantly in training mode. All right, so I'm going to hit that one real quick. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But whoever put that, I want you to keep in mind is training the problem or is understanding importance and application the problem, right? There is a difference between knowledge and application. If this was at home, if this was my home right behind me, and I was working in my personal office, you would see a bookshelf. And on that bookshelf, you would probably see about 60 or 70 books that I would say probably 75% read through my life. Various topics, travel, which I love, business stuff, money stuff, thinking and mindset, positive focus type stuff. Bunch of books, 50, 60 books, right? And culmination of 20, 30 years of time of reading those books. Application from those books, probably about 25% or less. Difference between knowledge and application. I got a lot of knowledge from those books I've read, but how much have I applied from it? Same thing with your people. If they're not adhering to policies that you've trained on, you've gone over again and again, start asking questions to them of why do you think these policies are important? How do these policies help you? We've trained on this. What parts don't you understand and why? How would you apply this? Put them in scenarios where they have to put those policies in action and what to do, and you will start to see. But the key thing I see, if you don't see a lot of change, people don't understand why it's important and how it helps them. When people understand it benefits me, it helps me, and this is why it's important and how that affects me, then, especially if it connects with what benefits them and helps them, then they take action. Just like in your personal life, right? If you go, something's important for me to fix or to achieve, and I understand what it is and why it's important and how it will help me, we're more apt to take action versus, well, I could do this or I should do this. Well, this might help, right? I always say I got a to-do list of 10 things at home. The things that are 1, 2, 3 on my list are the things where I go, this will really have a big impact on me, or it's going to solve a problem, or my wife's been on my butt about, hey, you got to get this done. Those are the things that get stuff done, right? Those are things take action. So that's the first thing I go, is it really, do they understand the training, or is it really, do they understand why this is important, how it will benefit them or how it will help them, and how to apply it? A lot of times, especially if we train again and again, we got to go into more of a coaching type mode like I talked about versus a retraining. All right, Aaron, what else popped in there besides some important questions not getting answered and policies not being implemented?
That's all I see coming in right now.
Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit now about some rules that will help us communication, and then what can we do, some tools that will help us with solving this. All right, some of these challenges. Give me a second there. Okay. And I always think of too, is think of how are these affecting us personally, not just our business impact, but how is it affecting you, your frustration, your concern, your worry, extra time you're spending, whatever it may be. All right, so key rule, number one, don't make communication about you, make it about them. All right, when you're communicating, are you thinking of, I just got to get my message across? I got to say what's most important to me. I got to get my questions answered. Or are you going into those conversations going, what's important to them? What are questions they might have? What are concerns they might have? What did they need to know from their end? Why would this help them or benefit them? Right? What's the style that's best for them? If they're a very detailed technical person, they're going to naturally ask a lot more questions about whatever direction, policy, et cetera, thing you're talking about. So be prepared with detail. Think through and go, okay, here's how we communicate or open it up to them and go, okay, here's what we've thought through. What details are we missing? What else do we need to think through? Right? If there's someone who they take their time and they steadily kind of build and take off, they don't take off fast, but once they get going, they are just a steady workhorse and get stuff done. Think about how can you, whatever we're talking about, how can we take it in a little step by step to get them going and encourage them to go, right? You got to think of different personality types, but also you got to think of what's in it for them. Why is this important, right? Make it about them, not about you. If you make it about them, a lot of times you'll get your goals accomplished because you're usually trying to get them to do something, to change a behavior, to take action, to communicate on something. Naturally, that will start to happen. What do you think this means? We say, what is this, like make it about them and why is that important? Well, it means are we focusing out and really focused on other people in our communication, or are we just focused in, right? Why is that important is ultimately we want to get them to take action behavior, usually in line with a goal or initiative we have. So we got to think, how do I make this about them and not about me? All right, so let's talk now about how do we start to fix some of the challenges that we mentioned. Some of the ones I brought up, other people brought up earlier. Number one, different personality types, right? Someone had said before is how best to communicate. First off, you got to start to recognize what are the different personality types and types of ways people like to be communicated with. All right, I'm going to share a model that we use here at Lucian and a lot of our clients use and we've taught. And you'll probably, as I go through this, if you're not familiar with the DISC personality profile, you probably have heard similar terms from like a Myers-Briggs, some of the other ones out there, right? Because there's a lot of even though they use different acronyms, different terms, there's a lot of similarity between them. And here's the key, folks, whether you're using a DISC or a Myers-Briggs or some sort of other personality recognition, profiling, and communication model, the key is you're recognizing that people are different to you and then how to use it and adjust. That's the big key, whether, whichever one you're using. So DISC, here's what I'm going to explain. Each letter stands for a different part of a person's personality, a different style of communication, a different way they think and approach things, a different, what's comfortable to them. All right, so D stands for dominant. Dominant people are very to the point, direct, keep it high level. They like to set goals and knock them down. They don't need a ton of detail, right? They just need to know, here's what we need to do, bam, let's take off. They take off fast. They tend to like to be in charge and like to be in control and like to have things go their way and be done their way. They tend to be leaders, a lot of times in natural leaders or in leadership roles or moved up into leadership roles. Now, here's the thing. Well, somebody could look at that and go, I love the fact of a dominant person and their personality type, right? They take charge, they keep it high level, they just keep moving, they get stuff done. Someone else of a different personality type or opposite them might go, I don't like that. They're so obtrusive. They just take control of everything. They're like a bull in a china shop. It's always about them, right? Here's the thing. We have all four of these personality parts that I'm going to talk about within our own personality. It's just one or two is what's natural, right? There's no right, wrong. There's no good, bad. It's just we're different, and to be able to recognize that. So D is that dominant personality type. I is the integrator you might hear, or the person who really just gets the whole crowd together, right? They're the cheerleader. They are the person who just they want to make sure everybody's included, that everybody's doing great. They're the fun person. They like to have fun in everything they do, and they try to find, no matter what we're doing, we're rolling out a policy or a process, we're going to have fun with it. Let's make it fun. they're generally someone who is very emotional. They're up and down. They can wear their emotions on a sleeve, right? Like one moment they're excited and happy, next moment they're upset or worried or concerned or sad, right? And there's emotional swings are there. So somebody might look at that high I, and go, I just really like the fact they're fun, they have a good time, they just let you know how they're feeling, they're not holding anything back. Someone else might look at them and go, why aren't they more serious and more focused? Why are they so emotional up and down, right? So that's the high I. High S is steady relator, right? This is the person I was explaining that sometimes they just need to take it step by step, not be in a rush, to take their time, to make sure that everything's, just goes as planned and nothing too fast. Once they get going, they're steady, they're the workhorse, they will get stuff done, but getting them started might be a challenge because they want to make sure things are perfect and nothing gets screwed up and we don't have any problems. They have a hard time dealing with conflict. A high dominant personality will get right in your face about it. A high I will tell you how they feel. The S, the stay relayer, will hold back because they don't like conflict and they don't like talking bad about someone or being upset with someone. They generally are people who are in types of roles who they like to help a lot of people, an HR role, right? Or a role where they get to help a lot of people and really help people be their best. And then we have the C, the critical thinker, compliant. These are your detail folks. These are your technical folks, maybe an engineer, computer technology, very detailed. Even lawyers have a very high C component, critical thinker, because they have to be very detail oriented. These are your people who think of every alternative, every scenario, every detail. They have a process they develop. They spreadsheet things. They calculate things. Things aren't about emotion. It's about facts and knowledge. They have a hard time though admitting they're wrong because they like to be right and they like to have all the details and knowledge. All right, so here's the thing. We all have all four parts of this within us. It's just one or two parts are what we call our dominant parts, which means when we're just naturally being who we are, those traits come out, or when we're under pressure, we tend to go back to those traits. So for example, if a high D of dominance under pressure, they'll make a decision quick, not worry about the consequences and move on. If a high I is under pressure, they'll tend to talk a lot about the situation or the thing they need to make a decision, but not make a decision and talk around a lot of different scenarios or try to change topics. If a high S is under pressure, they will tend to retract back and take even more time to make the decision and make sure it will work perfectly. If a high C is under pressure, they will ask for a lot of detail, a lot of questions, and think of every scenario and alternatives planned for before they make a decision. All right, so here's the thing, not right, wrong, good, bad. But as a leader, you have to recognize, well, where am I at on this profile? What's comfortable for me? What's my dominant one or two parts of my personality that are similar, to what we talked about in these four parts? And then what's my people? What are their DISC profiles? And recognizing that, and then how do I adjust as a leader? And we'll talk about that in a second. How do I just communicate to them? And folks, there's a lot of different out there, different models that you can go and paid, unpaid, where you can do DISC profiles for yourself and your team. But as a leader, you got to recognize, am I recognizing that these people, rest of my team, communicate differently from me? And how do I adjust to that? Not how do I get them to communicate my way, but how do I adjust to theirs to make it comfortable? If you're working with those high C's, critical thinkers, you got to give them more detail. You got to think through step by step. You got to get their input on how to solve things. If you're dealing with the high S's, and let's say you're that dominant type, you got to ask, take it step by step and ask if they're comfortable and slow things down and make sure, that they're comfortable with next steps. If you're dealing with the high I's, you got to make it fun. You got to make it enjoyable. You got to realize that they're going to talk a lot about it, around it until, you get them focused. If you're dealing with the high D's, you got to make it about how it helps them. You got to make it about here's what we need to get done. You got to give them a little freedom to take off, all right? But the key is, are you recognizing the different personality types and adjusting? Not expecting that they'll adjust to yours, right? So do's and don'ts, like I mentioned. Number one, the high D's, the dominant, help them see how it helps them, whatever you're trying to get done. And communicate in that high level way, not too much detail. And make it, how can they take charge and lead the initiative and it helps them, right? Don't put a lot of constraints around them. It's got to be done this way. Give them some freedom there. If you're dealing with the high I's, make it fun. How do you make things fun, not just always down to business? We have a lot of high I's on our team. That's why when we do our huddles on Mondays and Thursdays, we spend the first 5-10 minutes about just joking around about things, talking about some positive stuff, because it connects for them. It helps them feel connected and enjoyable. We don't always get down right to business. If we're dealing with the high S's, take your time. Let them think and process stuff. Worst thing you do is just put them on the spot and try to force an answer out of them. If you got to confront them and have conflict, let them know you're going to have that conversation. Do it separately. Don't put them on the spot in front of other people. If you're dealing with the high C's, let them talk through the detail. Let them process. Give them detail when you're giving them instruction. Help them think through things. Help them process. Help them set up a process and details and tools along the way. All right, but think about that is, are you communicating? Are you recognizing where they may be on this profile, and are you communicating in a way that helps them feel comfortable? Next key rule, clarity brings energy. This is one I talk about a lot with leaders. Are people clear on what the goal is and why it's the goal, or what the thing we're trying to do is and why? Are they clear on, here's what is expected, here's the expectations that we have of you, of reaching the goal, and some bumpers around how to get there, what needs to be done and what's required? Are they clear on how we're going to measure and track things, how we're going to make sure we're on progress when we meet next? If you as a leader, you're not clear, you better bet your folks aren't. So think about that. Is your message clear to them? Is it clear, or is it not well thought out? Is it not planned? Is it not very clear? And then people aren't going in the direction that you want them because you lack the clarity to start. 70-30 rule. Listen more than you talk. Here's the rule. 70% of the time, you should be asking questions and listening, 30% of the time talking. Now I'm gonna give some real life application. That's gonna depend on the situation. If you're in a training mode or instruction mode, you're gonna be doing more of the talking. But if you're in a coaching, helping people solve problems mode, helping people figure things out mode, listening to feedback, they should be doing a majority of talking. And the only way you can ensure they're doing that is by asking questions and listening. Right? So think about that. When people come to you with problems, how much of the talking are you doing versus the asking questions, so you can understand what's the problem? Why is it a problem? What's some of the detail and context? What's the impact? Why is this important for that person? What are some ideas and thoughts they have on how to solve it? All right, here's one of the questions I'd love to ask. If you've trained a bunch of times on something with someone and they come to you and go, how do I solve this? And you know you've been through it and you've worked through it, ask them this question as a leader. If you had 5 minutes to solve this and I wasn't here, or you couldn't go to anyone to ask them, what would you do and why? Make them think. That starts to bring the learned helplessness, because a lot of times what I found, if you train on it and people understand what needs to be done, what's expected, it's clear, they understand why, how it helps them, you've worked through how to apply it. When they come to you with a problem of how to solve it, it is generally because it's a confidence thing. I want to make sure I'm not screwing something up. It tends to be the S's and C's on disc profile. I'll make sure I'm not screwing something up so it goes right as planned. I don't let anybody down. Or it tends to be, I'm not connecting the dots of how what we trained, what we coached on, how it applies in this situation. It's not usually I don't understand the concept and what we're trying to accomplish. So ask them the question, if you had 5 minutes to solve this, I wasn't here, you couldn't go to anybody else, what would you do and why? And what you're gonna find a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times you're gonna find from people is they're like, I would do this, here's why I would do it. And if that makes sense, look at them and go, great, do that. And let's talk later about what happened and if you need more help, or let me know what happens, right? And you start to get them the confidence that they can solve it. And if you say that, do that enough with them, they're gonna know, I gotta come to I gotta come to you with a solution, what I do and why, and I can actually go out and do it, and it's okay. All right, but it starts with, are you asking questions and listening more than you're talking? All right, breaking learned helplessness. Let's talk about that. How do you do it? I just gave one example, asking them what they would do and why. Another is, when people come to you with problems, do you go into training and solution mode, or do you go into asking questions, uncovering, and coaching mode? I always think of this, my family doctor, been with him for 12 years since I moved back here to Indianapolis. Why have I been with him and recommended him? My wife goes to him. I've recommended family members to him. I've recommended friends that go to him. He asks a ton of questions. He doesn't assume anything. He helps me think ahead. He doesn't, he will, give me, here's what we need to do, but sometimes he'll let me arrive at the answers, right? So he starts off by asking a lot of questions versus just talking. He spends a lot of time with me. No matter how busy he is, makes sure he spends time, and makes me feel like I'm the only person there when he's helping me. He makes sure we talk through everything, that we really figure out a solution. And we have an alternate backup plan in case that doesn't initially work, right? But it starts with that. So you got to think for yourself, when people come to you with problems, are you being a doctor, or are you just going into solution mode? And here's what I would do, or here's how I would solve it, or let me take it over. When you do that, here's what I would do, here's how I would solve it, let me take it over, you're automatically creating that learned helplessness. You're creating that loop where the person will come back to you again and again. So the best way to fix that, stop it. Instead of talking, going, this is what I would do, here, do this, let me take it on for you. Start asking questions and go, okay, what have you done so far? What's the problem? Why is the problem? What's the impact? Give me a little detail. What have you done so far to fix it? Why is this something that's out there for you? What do you think you could do to fix it? What's your solution? If I wasn't here and you had 5 minutes to figure it out, what would you do? And you can't say go to someone else and have them tell you. How would you figure it out? Start creating that, getting people to think. You do that enough, they see that's the pattern, that's what you're going to do, they'll start to have the questions ready for you. When I coach clients and we do that on talking through opportunities with sales or problems with their people, eventually they start bringing that to me and go, Shad, okay, so here's the problem, here's what the impact is, here's why, here's what I've tried to do so far, it didn't work, here's what I think we could do next and why I think so, what else am I missing, right? I'm getting them to think and apply versus them always coming to me going, give me the answer. All right, so check yourself there and think about that. Now, here's the caveat. If the person's never been through the situation before, you never trained on it, you got to train them on it. So in that situation, you want to go into the adult learning model, which is, let me tell you what we need to do. Let me tell you why we need to do that. Let me tell you how we're going to do that. Let me walk you through. I will show you how we're going to do that. Now, you tell me what we need to do, why we need to do it, how we're going to do it, and you show me for understanding. Right? That's the adult learning model. If they've never been through a situation, never been trained on it, you got to go there. But if not, go into coaching, ask questions, help them start to put the pieces together by asking questions to help them discover. All right, stop protecting them. Let them struggle and learn. And this goes along with learned helplessness. As a leader, you want to help your people. Yes, and you don't want to see them get in bad situations. But this is much like riding a bike. And if anybody out there's got kids who ride bikes, when you're teaching them how to ride a bike, you take the training wheels off, they're going to have to fall down a few times. They're going to have to scrape some knees and elbows because they're going to have to learn how to balance. They're going to have to learn how to speed up and down and use the brakes appropriately. They're going to have to learn how to come to a stop. They're going to have to learn how to, I grew up in the country, how to ride on gravel and dirt versus riding on pavement. If you don't ever take the training wheels off, or you don't let them have those situations, they'll never learn how to ride a bike, and they're going to be 30 years old and looking for a bike with training wheels. Let them struggle. But in the parentheses, you hear the key is as long as you coach for lessons after. So if they struggle and if something doesn't work out, spend the time coaching and helping them figure out what didn't work out, why it didn't work out, what they would do differently next time, and how they would apply it. But let people struggle to learn. Too many leaders protect their people and don't put them in situations where they can learn and develop, and then they complain going, I don't understand why they don't get it, why they don't develop, why we're still solving the same problems. As a leader, are you putting them in the situations where they can learn and struggle? All right, here is another huge one that can help you. Do your people understand what's in it for them to take action? Someone said policies are not being implemented. Some important questions are not being answered. Do they understand why those are important questions and how those impact them or how they're going to affect them? Do they understand why those policies are important and how they're going to impact or affect them or how they're going to help them? If you're not sure, ask them those questions. Why do you think this is important? How is this going to impact you or help you? Why do you think this is something that we're trying to tackle? If people don't see the compelling reasons for them to listen to what you're saying, to understand it and to take action, the what's in it for them, it's just another thing that's on their to-do list. It's just another thing we got to get to, right? It's just another thing that's in the white noise of all the other stuff out there. So you guys stop yourselves here and go, have I asked them, do they understand why it's important? Do they understand how it's going to help them or benefit them or impact them? Do they understand what needs to be done? And there's clarity there. All right. So as we're wrapping up on some of the tools there, and we talked about what are some of the problems, communication, or people there brought up some of them. I shared some additional ones that happen. We talked about why do those occur, and then we talked about some good key rules and what we can do, some ways to start to break some of those things, be it understanding different personality profiles and do's and don'ts on the DISC profile, be it breaking learned helplessness, understanding coaching and holding people to taking action versus just solving or taking it on for them. And we talked about understanding compelling reasons, getting people, uncovering their compelling reasons and how things help them. I want to bring us back to one key rule that we started today with, and that was don't make communication about you, make it about them. So these problems or challenges, step back and ask yourself, what's been my part that's causing these to happen? Why is that happening? What can I change from my end using some of the tools we talked about today or some other tools out there to start to communicate more in a way that works better for my people, helps them feel more comfortable, helps them get things, gets them solving and taking action and putting things in place, holds them accountable to it, breaks that learned helplessness. All right, so I want to take you back to that. Remember, don't make communication about you, make it about them, about the other person. All right, so now we talked through some things. Here's what I want to hear or see in the chat. What are you going to do to improve these things? So as you think through some of the tools I gave on understand different personality profiles and aligning to those, breaking learned helplessness through coaching. Talked about understanding compelling reasons, getting people to uncover compelling reasons, how it helps them to take action. Put in the chat, what's something you're going to do from today to improve communication and work on some of the challenges that you brought up. Go ahead and put those in chat. I'll have Aaron share those. We'll wrap up and then we'll do some Q&A and then I'll share here's how best to reach me.
All right, looks like we have a few responses coming in. We use predictive index already, have all employees who've not done it, and used to determine communication skills.
Love it. Like I said, where it's DISC, Myers-Briggs, predictive index, whatever it is, just are we using that to recognize different personality types and adjust communication with them? Love it. Good. That's a great one. What else? Anything else coming in, Aaron?
Not yet.
Okay.
One thing we do here at higher level with our teams is strength finders. I think that can really provide some great insights as well.
Mm-hmm. How do you use that?
We did it earlier last year, but basically every team member will take it, compare results, and it kind of gives you some great insights on how people work certain ways and kind of why. Some of them are discipline, woo. It just really gives you insights and perspective on how to collaborate more effectively and maybe reasons why they communicate the way they do. So it just provides those different insights. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've got a few other clients that have used it. I think one of my clients had me take it one time. It was some very good insights from it. Very good tool. All right.
We have a couple others coming in. Having more icebreaker team activities and use the quarterly management meeting to ask them what they get out of it.
Like that, whoever said use the quarterly management meeting, don't wait for that unless it's coming up like very soon the next week. If you got questions you want to understand from your team, what's important for them, what they're getting out of things, why things are important, ask now. Because when you start to understand that earlier, you're going to get them into action earlier, right? And help them connect the dots. But love it is the fact that we're thinking, hey, let's ask them what's important to them, why it's important, where are they getting out things. I was coaching with the management team last week that I work with, we were talking about making team meetings more effective. And one of the things they said is, well, we could do this, could do that. And I just slowed them down and went, have you asked the folks in those meetings what would make them more effective and why? And they went, no. I said, how about we start there? People will tell you, got ideas. Let's talk through it. You don't have to figure it. Don't work so hard. As leaders, a lot of times we want to work hard and figure out everything for everybody. That's that learned helplessness versus asking questions, uncovering, and then they feel more empowered if they're going, I'm part of that. I'm part of that figuring out that process, that detail, that solution. Good. Erin, any others?
No, I don't see any others at this time.
Okay. We're going to open this up. Any questions, Q&A, we'll answer that. And then from there, I'll share how to contact me and we'll wrap up. So Erin, in the chat or questions, where would you like them put if they have any questions?
I think putting it in the chat would be great, and then we can explore and dissect it on who wants follow up.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead and put in the chat. If you have a specific question here, we got a few minutes. I'll be happy to answer, from my perspective. So go ahead and we'll give a couple minutes and then we'll go from there. All right, Erin, any questions coming in?
Don't see any coming in yet.
Okay, let's give it another minute, and then if not, we'll move on to finish up for the day.
Right, here we go. One from Lori. I am from a small company that is family owned and is having a hard time adjusting to policies and suggestions.
Okay, so Lori, I'm going to give a very high level without, obviously knowing some details, specific policies. And obviously the family dynamic is a big one. What that is. The big thing is to start to understand, okay, what specifically in the policies are having a problem adjusting to and why. Also, it's to appreciate the change within organizations. Here's a rule, and this is more like when I talk with clients about change management and managing change throughout organization, is that people don't just change, they evolve, right? And here's what I mean is that if we just change, so for example, if you said, hey, tomorrow I'm going to change from doing this to this. I'm going to use an example in sales. I hate making cold calls. Let's say that was like my belief. And then tomorrow I'm going to tell myself, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and believe I love making cold calls. It's just easy and fun. When tomorrow comes, you're not going to just wake up and love making cold calls, right? You're still not going to feel great about it. You might feel a little better because you're trying to, but you're not going to feel great about it. You don't just change like that. You don't just change by flipping a switch and go now and do opposite. There are a few folks out there in the world who do that. They're very unique who can do that. Most of us take time. We have to go through a process and evolve, right? And we have to start to, we may deny, at first we may be in shock that we have to make a change. There's some denial. Is this going to happen? There's some, I don't feel great about it. And then there becomes a little bit of exploration, a little bit of trial, and then a decision gets made and then implementation. So I would say in some of those policy changes, you got to go, okay, where are we at in that change curve, right? Are we early on with some of those things where people are going, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, I'm denying it, I'm in shock, I'm frustrated. Might be people who are going, hey, this is great, let's go. And then are people starting to, make some, try it, test it out, implement some things and make change. That takes time. And there's no timeline to say this happens, but those are some of the phases it goes through. The next piece is we got to understand is, are we clear about what's the change, why it's going to be changing, how it helps and benefits people, and spending the time with people to answer questions and address concerns versus just moving on, right? And then the last piece is the change being supported top down, So is management leadership all on the same page? And they're going, because as soon as people start to go, well, yeah, I know we're saying we're making this change, but Bob over here is saying, it's not, we shouldn't be doing this, and he's on the leadership team, or Susie over there saying it, they're going to get confused, and they're going to side with those people based on where they want it to be. So we got to go back and go, is it clear what we're doing, why, how it helps folks? Are we giving people time to go through the change, right? And are we setting the example? All right, hopefully that helps. Erin, any other questions?
No, nothing coming in yet.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on. Last one here. I'm going to share this. So let me, hopefully there. Let me try again. Here's how to contact me, folks. I appreciate you playing along today. You can reach me at my email, shad@lucian.com. You can also reach me at my phone number there. That's my personal number. Or the QR code you'll see here. If you want to reach out and you go, I want to set some time, Shad, to talk with you further about some communication challenges or other things that we run into, we need help on, you can scan that code. It will take you to a Lucian webpage where you can put in your info, and then within the next day, I'll reach out to you to set a time to talk. All it means is we're just setting a time to have a conversation about questions you might have, things you want to discuss. That's it. All right. And if you don't reach out, I will not contact you. But that's usually, I find people have some questions ongoing, or they're like, I want to talk about this. I always want to make sure to provide a way that people can reach me if needed. All right.
All right, thank you so much. Great information. I don't know about you all, but I definitely have some notes that I'm going to use later this week for a meeting. So Shad will let you know how that goes. Thank you for spending your morning with us and joining with us. We have another great topic coming up the end of October on the 26th, where you maybe be able to use some of these tips and tricks. But we have 2 experts joining us to talk all about effective new hire onboarding and how to make that successful for your new hires. So if you're interested in registering in advance, you can email me at hello@higherlevel.com. And I hope everybody has a great day.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.